The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Knock, knock. Coach wants to see you. Bring your playbook. Doesn't work that way anymore. They just text you. And when you get that text, it's not a good thing. You know, guys used to hide out. They used to hide under their beds. They wouldn't answer the door. I guess you could say, I lost my phone. I didn't know about that. But it's, pretty much a case where most guys know that it's possible. And when they get that text, they show up. I noticed they've stopped showing that on Hard Knocks. It's kind of run its course, But, this is going to be a tough day for a lot of guys. And cutdown day in Ashburn is going to be a little bit odd because there are so many positions that they're unsure about, like wide receiver, like kicker, that you're going to see guys going and you're going to see guys coming. And as Dan Quinn said the other day, he said the 53-man roster, even through the first week of the season, is going to be fluid. And part of the reason for that is contracts are guaranteed for players who are on rosters on the first week of the season. So if you want to bring somebody in week 2 and not have to pay him for the full year, that's the way you do it. And if a guy has a contract and has a spot on the roster in week 1 and they cut him, he gets all of his money, whether he lands someplace else or not. So you're going to see a lot of that going on, not just here but around the league. But because of the 4-win season last year, Washington has the number 2 pick on the waiver wire. So they'll have their selection of most guys that they might be interested in. So far, you keep hearing rumors about the big wide receiver push. Are they going to get Brandon Ayuk? Are they going to make that deal with the 49ers? Well, the going rate is high because CeeDee Lamb just signed yesterday, finally, with Dallas. So he's at $34 million a year. And that's the ballpark that you're in. And I just don't think the way that they are doing things with the Commanders this year, that's something they want to do. And Josh Harris had a news conference the other night, and the indication was that, this is not necessarily going to be a team in the next even year or two that's, necessarily going to be looking for big wins. Okay. So, in fact, let me play this. This was Harris. This is on Sunday, and he was talking about the 2024 season, and I think this is really indicative of the thinking of the organization. It's not short term. It's long term. They never used to say rebuild during the Dan Snyder years. And Dan Quinn, when he was introduced as coach, he said, I don't want to use rebuild. I want to use recalibrate. But this is the reality, and I think Harris expresses it when he talked to the media on Sunday.
I'm focused on our long-term goals, which is I want to be elite and playing deep into the playoffs or competing for Super Bowls season in and season out. And, I'm focused on building, and I think this will be a better season than last year across the board. I think we're going to be, obviously the identity that Dan and Adam have been talking about, the team is front and center in terms of us being competitive, of being, punishing, of competing at the end. And obviously, the record was dismal last year, and we better do better than that. But really, I think this is going to be a way better season for all of those things and a lot of the intangibles. Jaden continuing developing, hopefully, into what we think and all hope that and know that he can be. And so, a lot of intangibles, and then you should see improvement across the board on everything. Whether that I've learned a long time ago in sports not to make bold predictions, so I will not. This is sports, and I'll leave that to the bettors in Vegas and other things. People who are better at making predictions than I am, but. For sure, we're all going to have a much funner time.
That was Commanders owner Josh Harris on Sunday. He did not say, hey, if all goes right, if Jaden turns out to be the next C.J. Stroud, we could be a playoff team. No, didn't do any of that. So that's why I don't think they're going to reach for Brandon Ayuk. And they were never going to reach for CeeDee Lamb. And the Cowboys were never going to trade CeeDee Lamb here. but he's now off the market, signing a long-term extension. I think it's $126 million, $100 million guaranteed. $100 million guaranteed for a wide receiver. Wow. Just crazy. So we will talk more about the roster cutdowns. I'll be keeping an eye on Twitter during the breaks and try and keep up with the cuts that are reported. They won't announce the roster until after 4 o'clock. And again, even after that's announced, there's going to be changes over the next few days, over the next week, and even after the first week of the season. We had the debut of Dylan Cruz last night, and attendance listed at 38,812 last night. 32,812. So it's a little less than 7,000 short of a complete sellout at Nats Park. But I wonder how many came for the debut of Dylan Cruz. Not that people didn't want to see him, but when the Yankees scored, and they scored in the first inning, you heard a lot of cheering going on. So, this has been going on forever here. I remember that the Bullets used to play the Knicks, and they would play at Cole Fieldhouse. They would play several games a year. That's when they were still in Baltimore. And they usually scheduled the Knicks when they played at Cole. And the crowd was probably 75 to 80% Knicks fans, because there's a lot of transplanted New Yorkers down here. And the Yankees are sort of that national team. And in those days, the Knicks were good. They won the championship in 70 and 73. So, everybody wanted to see them. So that's what really the crowd was there for last night. But it was cool to see the lineup, because the top three players, the top three hitters, are all guys who they hope will be here for a long time. C.J. Abrams in the leadoff spot, where he's been all year. Then you had Cruz put in the number 2 spot. And then you had James Wood in the 3 spot. And those guys are under team control for a long, long time. I think Abrams is the oldest of them, like 23, maybe 24. So, that indicates good things for the future. Now, I'm a little, I heard Bob Carpenter say this last night on Masson, and it's a headline today in the Post. The Nats' future is now. Carpenter referenced George Allen. And the funny thing to me about it is, when George Allen said the future is now, he had traded away most of his draft picks for the next 3 years, 71, 72, and 73, to bring in veterans. There was no salary cap in those days, so he didn't have to worry about that. But he brought in a bunch of guys from the Rams, like Dyron Talbert came over here. Richie Pettibone had been with the Rams. Jack Pardee, who I think was the most key figure that came here with Allen with the defense. He was the captain of the defense and really turned things around for them. There were, 7 or 8 other guys who came in. Some couldn't even play anymore, but he just wanted them here, like Myron Patios. Well, Patios played, I should say. He played. But there were a couple of guys that they brought in who just, couldn't play anymore. But Allen had to have them, and he did. He turned things around. They had not been to the playoffs since 1945, and they made it in 71 and went to the Super Bowl in 72, but it was old veterans. So when they say the future is now, it has a little bit different meaning than it did when George Allen said it in 1971, because he was doing it with tried and true veterans who had, they hadn't won playoff games for him, but they had excellent records in Los Angeles. And in the case of Richie Pettibone, he'd won a championship with the Bears in 1963. So these guys had success in the NFL. These are guys who they hope will have long and productive careers here, high draft picks, in the case of Cruz, he was the number 2 pick last year. What he did last night, he made a throw from right field. He's got definitely a rocket arm, but it was off target. Couldn't nail the runner at the plate. Went 0 for 3 with a walk. So he's still looking for his first major league hit, which he could get tonight. But he is going to get an opportunity to play every day the rest of the year. And this is what Davey Martinez said he told Cruz when he was called up yesterday from AAA.
We're all excited here. I know Nats fans should be excited. So, but he's one of 26. That's what I told him today. Go out there, play, have fun, be where your feet are, and let's go try to win a game and go 1-0.
Chance to talk to him a lot, because what was your sense of his demeanor and how he's
he was good. He was good. Hey, he's a baseball player. I've seen it. We've seen him play in college. He went through. They won some championships over there. He's went through the minor leagues, worked his way to having good at bats, played the outfield really well. So he's going to get a chance up here to play up here, play him every day, and see where he's at.
Okay, so he did play last night. He'll play again tonight as they play Game 2 of the series. This was Cruz before the game. Now, these are what we call sound bites, which are put together. So this is like his scoped down pregame interview with the media. But he says some things here, and, nothing that's earth-shattering. But he's a guy who's got his head on straight. He played college baseball, helped LSU win the national championship, was patient in the minor leagues, got off to a slow start. He probably would have been called up earlier if he didn't go through those struggles in the early part of the season. But by the time he got to AAA, he was raking. And based on what they've seen from James Wood and getting his call up, looked like they were ready to bring Cruz up, and he came up last night. But this is what he said before he took the field.
I was thrilled, honestly, finding out for the first time, and just in front of the whole team too. It was a special moment, and forever thankful. Just it makes you think about all your family and all the sacrifices that it's taken for me to get to this point, and just truly thankful. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited. It's a kid's dream to put on a major league uniform and go out there and compete, and it's gonna be a special day. I got a lot of friends and family here, and they've been along the ride and the journey with me, so I'm really excited to go out there and just compete out there and do what I've been doing since I was a little kid. I think going to college to really help me stay present every day, and Coach Jay over there at LSU really helped me to just stay focused on my craft every day and be present and be where my feet are. So when I got over to AAA, I wasn't really worried about the future and just really focusing on how I can get better every single day. And skipper over there, Coach Lee Croy, really helped me out with that too. So it was awesome. I had a good time. I think we got a great group of guys in this organization right now. You've seen it in our minor league system. From AA to low A, high A to AAA. It's just we're always winning and trying to get better every single day. And I think we got a great core moving up together. You got House coming up. You got Pinckney coming up, Hassel. So you have a great core moving up together, and we're all familiar with our game, been playing with each other even before professional baseball. So it's pretty special. And I think in the next year or two, we'll be pretty good.
Yeah, you know what that sounds like? Sounds like what we're seeing just up the road. All those guys who played together in the minor leagues. Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holliday has been called up. He's starting to produce a little bit. So these guys who played together in the minors in Baltimore, they went through the lumps, and now they are coming off a 100-win season. They're in second place right now. They will be in the playoffs, and let's see how far they go this year. So, that's maybe a year away, and maybe two, but certainly in the near future. So when they say the future is now, it's really the future is next year and maybe the year after that. But we're getting a glimpse into the future with Dylan Cruz, so that's a good thing. And, I would expect that he will start to produce along with Abrams and Wood. And then you got the trio that, what we call them down the road, like the Cowboys, the triplets, right? Let's hope it goes that way. Meantime, with this game, there was another story developing. And in batting practice, Juan Soto, who's back for the first time as a Yankee. He came back to Nats Park when he played for the Padres, but this was his first time there as a Yankee. And was seen hugging it out with Mark Lerner, and they were sitting there chatting before the game. You can read into it whatever you want, but, there could have been some bitterness here that, Soto maybe thought he was going to be a national for life and they were going to pay whatever it took to keep him. But once he had turned down, $440 million, they sent him off to the Padres, and they got, return on it. They got Mackenzie Gore, they got C.J. Abrams, they got James Wood. Those are going to be three cornerstones for the team. Now, you can have them back, and you can have them back without giving anything up, but it's going to cost you. And it may cost you north of $600 million. I don't think the Lerners are going to do that. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be happening, but Barry Zerluga of the Post has been beating the drum on this for quite a while, and he's got another column today. He was at the game last night, which the Nats lost 5-2 to the Yankees, and he said, he got a quote from Soto. He said, "Right now, I'm playing for the Yankees. I'm happy where I'm at, and we'll see what happens in free agency. And Barry writes, will it cost more than $500 million? Yes. Could it reach as much as $600 million? Sure. And then you can debate this if you want. I don't think he's worth north of $600 million. I don't think the Lerners are going to give it to him. But Barry writes, Soto is worth it. He was a talent when he went from Class AA straight to the majors in 2018. He was an absolute force when he reached base safely 28 times in 17 games in the 2019 postseason. And by the time the Nationals painfully but necessarily traded him in the summer of 2022, he was established as a generational hitter. I mean, you hear comparisons to Ted Williams. I mean, this has been going on since he was a rookie. And then, you think about how long ago the World Series was. Doesn't it seem like a long time ago? It was 5 years ago, 2019. Realize, as Barry writes, that Juan Soto doesn't turn 26 until October. Maybe Aaron Judge is a better offensive player at the moment. Maybe. But Judge is 32. Soto has 6 more seasons before he reaches that age because he debuted at 19, which is a rare free agent who hasn't yet reached his prime. It's staggering. And he says, outside of Washington, the idea of the Nationals signing Soto probably sounds ridiculous. Internally, it should sound realistic. It's not just in baseball operations in which the advantage of adding Soto are obvious. That's within the ownership, too, because with Patrick Corbin's contract coming off the books, no veteran is set to make 8 figures, and it's flat-out time to spend again. I guess the Strasburg deal is off the books. They're still paying that out. I think it's got 3 more years to go after this. So that's still money going out. But I guess when you look at the because he's not on the roster, it would not be a payroll thing necessarily. But I'm sure the pain is felt every time they send him a check. Here's more from Zerluga's column. The crosstown Mets, with $200 million coming off their payroll this offseason, figured to drive up the price for Soto. And yes, there's in New York what they call the battle for the back page, where you want to be on the back page of the sports section in the Daily News and the New York Post. And it's always battling it out between the Yankees and the Mets. So, Steve Cohen is going to want to make a splash, and there would be no bigger splash than stealing Soto from the Yankees, a generational player taken from the crosstown team. So the price is going to go up. But he says the Chicago Cubs, the Red Sox, there's no team in baseball that wouldn't benefit from Soto's immense presence. The Nationals are among them and should count themselves as such. The most excruciating step in this years-long rebuild was trading Soto away to San Diego. It would be absolutely delicious to fold him into a group that was partially assembled through the deal. And here's the proposed lineup. We saw some of it at the top last night. C.J. Abrams, shortstop, leadoff. Juan Soto as the DH. Okay. James Wood in left field. You sign a free agent first baseman / third baseman. Luis Garcia Jr. at second. Dylan Cruz in right field. Ildemaro Vargas / Jose Tena / Brady House at third. Brady House is still in the minors, but they consider him a great prospect. You've got Keibert Ruiz under a contract. He signed a long-term deal, I think, before last year. They have Drew Millis also in the organization at catcher. And then Jacob Young is an outstanding center fielder. So, yes, that looks very good. He makes the comparison to what happened when they were a young team with Ryan Zimmerman, Ian Desmond, Jordan Zimmerman, Steven Strasburg, and Bryce Harper, and they signed Jason Worth to a 7-year deal for $126 million, and Max Scherzer 7 years, $210. Those 2 deals combined would be a little more than half of what they would have to give Soto. So, I guess times have changed. Money's changed in sports. There's more money coming in from broadcast deals and so forth, but it seems crazy. But if you really want to make a splash, that would be an unbelievable splash, because even though Soto's not here anymore, and some may have said, oh, my God, look at him and his greedy agent, Scott Boras, turning down the highest contract in the history of sports, at that time it was, $440 million. What are you doing there? And then we would see a case where, they bring him back, and he got a standing ovation last night. So the fans still love him. They still love Juan Soto, as they should. And boy, if Barry's right, if they bite the bullet and pay what it takes to bring in Juan Soto, that would be huge. And you know what else might be interesting on this? Not that necessarily the game is played this way, but let's say Jaden Daniels has a great rookie year. Let's say they even make the playoffs like Houston did with C.J. Stroud. The Commanders will be the toast of the town. And the Nationals are competing in some way for the sports dollar. Let's face it. It's a lot of money now to go to games. They rolled out their new food options for this exhibition game that they played on Sunday night. They're selling nachos for $30. Beers are $15, $16 a piece. Not to mention the ticket costs and everything else. So as families look at their sports watching budget, do you look at the way that the other team in town is doing and say, yeah, we got to make a splash too? Something to keep an eye on. Might be interesting. Coming up, Bill Belichick on the kickoff rule and where he thinks it's going. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So the jersey that went up for sale from Babe Ruth from the game where he had the called shot or the alleged called shot in the 1932 World Series? You heard it sold for over $24 million at auction. Darren Ravel, who tracks this stuff for a living, has his own sports memorabilia network, site, whatever you want to call it. He was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he's got the backstory on that. It's fascinating. We're going to get to that in just about an hour. Meantime, a little football here, and we're waiting for the cuts. They don't have to be in until 4 o'clock this afternoon, but you're starting to see a few trickle out. Nothing major from the Commanders so far, but there is also going to be some league action today, and the owners are going to vote on a proposal that will allow them to sell up to 10% of each team to a list of permitted private equity firms. This has been an unbelievable run for owners, where you had the Denver Broncos sell 2 years ago for $4.2 million, and then the Commanders sell a little more than a year ago for over $6 billion, and they realized, well, they bumped their heads up against what most people can pay, or most billionaires can pay, outside of Jeff Bezos. So they're looking now at private equity firms to invest in these teams, and, it could be that the Commanders were the last team to sell to individuals. Even Josh Harris couldn't do it by himself, as successful as he is. He had to get other investors like Mitch Rales and Mark Ein, and then bringing Magic Johnson aboard. I don't know how big Magic's investment was, but the publicity and the public relations aspect of that is huge. So that was a nice big thing for them. But that is, indicative of boom times for the NFL, that the prices of the franchises are so big that you have to bring in private equity firms to do that. Otherwise, they are reportedly not going to go to pulling the ball at the 35-yard line when they have touchbacks on kickoffs. We saw the preseason started to get used to the new kickoff formation, and in most cases you saw the kicker kick it inside that zone, like the I think it's 20 yards to the end zone, where you kick the ball, and there are various rules as to where it bounces and who picks it up, whatever. But if it goes out of the end zone, it now comes out to the 30. For many years, it came out to the 20. They put it out to the 25, and people didn't care. They were just kicking it out of the end zone. We had a Super Bowl where there were 13 kickoffs. All of them were touchbacks. So the hope is that this will encourage more kickoffs. Well, it did in the preseason, but Bill Belichick, who is now Mr. Media, he goes on the Pat McAfee show once a week, was on yesterday discussing what he thinks will happen with the kickoff, and he believes that what we saw in the preseason will really have no effect on what will happen in the regular season, and it's going to look a lot like last year.
Just move the ball back. I mean, this is like golf. The 400-yard par fours are no longer 400-yard par fours. They're 500-yard par fours. So if they can hit it further, just move the ball back and kick off from the 20 or 25 or put it wherever you want to put it. But if you want kickoff returns, then just move the ball back. I think what we saw in preseason was most teams kicking the ball so it would be returned so they could evaluate their coverage. And sometimes they might have had some kind of a situation with their opponent where, well, you do the same thing for us. So, we get a chance to return the ball, right? And that's, that's what it is. I think once you get into the regular season, if a team's got a good returner,
Bill, it's just going to be touchbacks. That's all it's going to be. That's all it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you put the ball on a 30 instead of 25. I mean, big deal. But I'd rather do that than, to kick it to one of these guys that has got a chance to, change field position on you in a hurry. So I think we saw more returns in preseason percentage-wise than what we're going to see in the regular season. And again, remember, preseason, I mean, first of all, the games are the games, and second of all, a lot of guys that are back there are just guys that teams want to evaluate. So it's a little different. You start talking about kicking off to, Turpin and, Duvernay and guys like that. I mean, I'd kick it out of the end zone.
Could you imagine putting Tyreek back there, Coach? Could you imagine ever thinking in your head kicking the ball inbounds if Tyreek Hill's standing back there? It's like, no way. No chance at all. And every team has one of those guys. Back in the day, it used to be like there was 3 good returners. You know more than me. I don't want to talk out of pocket, but I'm just talking, from what I've been told. 3 good returners around the league, 4 good returners maybe. Now everybody has a great returner if they want one. A fast 4.3, 4.4 guy that could potentially do it. And all you need on a kickoff is just somebody to do that. Literally, just do this. And with the speed, it's gone. So with a 30-yard start, I think it's just going to be touchbacks. I'm kind of bummed out about it because I'm worried they're just going to get rid of the kickoff next, Coach.
Yeah.
I'm worried about it.
Yeah, well, and I say a lot of these teams have 2 good returners because if you only have one, they'll just kick it away from them, in this split safety look that everybody's using. So they'll just kick it to the other guy. But a lot of teams have 2. So there's really, you don't want to kick it to one guy. You're not really that excited about kicking at the other guy either, so just touch back it and go out there and play.
So the net from Bill Belichick is they were experimenting in the preseason. You also weren't putting your top players back to return kicks, which you might do in the regular season. And if you do that, the team that's kicking off isn't going to want to put it in their hands, so they're going to kick it out of the end zone. Joe Gibbs on occasion would use Darrell Green when he really needed a big return, and it paid off for him big time in a playoff game against the Bears, the famous return where he jumped over Cap Boso and tore rib cartilage and went in the end zone, and they beat the Bears in that playoff game. But they wouldn't use him sparingly, or hardly ever would they use Darrell Green for that. You could see teams, if it starts to become a normal thing to try and kick it in that zone and not kick it out of the end zone, that you're going to put some top-notch guys back there, and you're going to put your fastest players, and you just aren't going to be able to stop it. So Belichick is saying, and he's a defensive-oriented guy, even though he pretty much coached both, but he's saying if he's coaching today, he's kicking it out of the end zone. The hell with it. Put it on the 30-yard line and hope my defense can stop it. If you put it out at the 35, that gets you to think more. That's why he keeps saying move it up. If they put it out at the 40, that would almost force you to kick off every time. Really, I mean, I don't know if you have a 2-touchdown lead, you might not do that, but there's a lot of strategy that's now going to go into this, and you're also going to have some of these special teams coaches scheming more. They're going to be thinking of ways to get returns, trick plays, things like that, and things that they didn't want to show in the preseason. So it's very likely, and the season will start a week from Thursday. Baltimore playing at Kansas City, the annual kickoff game. Be very interested to see how those 2 teams handle it. Those are the teams that met for the AFC Championship last year. They're good teams. They know what they're doing. I wonder if we're going to see the ball just kicked out of the end zone like it was in the Super Bowl. And, yeah, it doesn't go to the 25 anymore. It goes to the 30. So be it. Belichick says that's what he would do. He would just kick it out of the end zone every time. And they're kicking off from the 40, too. There's a period of time where the kickers, their leg strength was so great that they said, let's have them kick off from the 35. Maybe they can't put it out of the end zone. Well, they're still putting it out of the end zone. So now they put it at the 40-yard line. And this crazy kickoff zone that they have, it's kind of interesting in the preseason. We had a couple of interesting returns, but by and large, the experiment may not work. And I guess we'll have a better picture like 3 weeks into the season, but that's the Belichick take for right now. Meantime, you've got a situation where Jimbo Fisher is out on the street as a coach, much like, kind of like Belichick. Jimbo Fisher did win a national championship and at Florida State and had some successful teams at Texas A&M, but the bottom fell out. And last year, in case you forgot, Jimbo Fisher was fired by Texas A&M with a buyout of $77.6 million. $77.6 million. That's more than a third of what the Cowboys sold for to Jerry Jones. So he got a buyout that big, and he's not coaching this year, although he's being paid handsomely not to coach. But even if he goes someplace else, whatever he gets will just offset that a little bit. So let's say he goes to a school and said, you can have me cheap because I'm getting paid anyway, so pay me $2 million a year, and Texas A&M is going to have to pay the rest. But he's a coach. He likes to coach, and he's not going to be able to coach forever. So he's interested in getting back in. But listen to how he describes the way that coaching now works. It's not really, and this is what I think drove Nick Saban out, it's not really coaching like it used to be coaching. And this is yesterday on our morning show on Sportsmanlike. It was with Courtney Cronin and Peter Burns. And Jimbo Fisher came on to discuss his desire to get back in coaching, but a coaching business that is very different than the one he came into.
I miss the relationship. I know I miss practice. I mean, you miss the game and the competition. I mean, you want to go do that and get in the arena. But as a coach, I miss the day-to-day interaction with our players. I miss the day-to-day interaction with the practices. I'm watching a kid grow where, all the media can't be there, and he gets his butt chewed out, but then the next day he grows like a parent does. You know what I'm saying? I miss that part of the game and those interactions and having those meetings afterwards with the kid, and he's struggling, and you're trying to explain to him why he's doing good, why he's doing bad. I mean, all those types of things you truly miss. And like you say, there's only so many things you can hunt and fish and do all that stuff. And family time's been great. I will say that, because that's a new thing in college football that's really tough because of the new recruiting rules. It's time away from your family. But, I'm still young enough that, like I say, I'm gonna be ready to roll probably here pretty soon.
Ready to roll. So how active are you going to be maybe this upcoming season in figuring to get back into the game?
Well, I'm gonna keep my eye on. I'm still gonna watch film. I do things. That's just what I do. And I've got a young son who's wanting to get into coaching, and I think it's gonna be utterly outstanding. He's a lot better than I ever was at that age. And getting into those things, and just the interest of what you do, I'm definitely going to be involved in that part of it. And then we'll see when the season ends if the right opportunities are there.
You talk about recruiting and the sacrifices that coaches now have to make in order just to recruit their own roster on a week-to-week basis. We heard Mike Gundy talk about it recently, that business is closed once the season starts. Have your agents reach out in December if you want more money, so on and so forth. Are we at a boiling point here? There's all these changes coming to college football this year, whether it's, the SEC getting 2 new teams, the Big Ten having its conference realignment and expansion come into fruition. How do you see what's at play here with NIL and recruiting potentially driving either more coaches out of the game or driving us to a point where at the next league meeting or whatever special session the NCAA can call into order, that those rules would need to go into play to change just how wild it's gotten?
The thing about it is, here's what's getting the coaches have coached for a while. Like, we're certain parts of the year, okay, we're in the recruiting mode, we're doing this. Now I'm going back to my team and coach. Those things aren't, you don't have that time anymore. Because it's constant ability to transfer, constant ability to, I want this, I want that, like Mike's saying. And that's where I think the coaches have really been in a long time. And even the new guys, you don't get to go coach. It's almost like you got to have a personnel group and then almost a babysitting group a little bit for a group of guys that are, troubleshooting all the issues. And then you have your group of coaches that coach. And that's the thing that I think is frustrating. We have to navigate. But the problem is, it's not that the kids are making money. That's wonderful. But like you say, you can't keep negotiating during the season. The guy's got to coach. You understand the 16-hour days, the 18-hour days that a coach puts in, and then he's trying to game plan, and then you're spending half of that day over my contract, my this, my that. You're not coaching anymore, so it's changing the whole dynamic, which is very scary because some coaches in some schools don't have the budgets to hire the amount of people that you need. And I think that's the other part of college football we keep missing the boat on. There's such a disparity for 2 conferences right now compared to the rest. It's not fair.
How much of that did you experience last season at Texas A&M, if I can ask? Like, was that something that you were having to combat dealing with in season while you're just trying to coach?
Well, I think every coach is. Every coach is. You hear horror stories. Guys say, "Okay, I'm not going to play the bowl game." Well, if I get $50,000, I'll go play the bowl game. You're negotiating the week. I mean, you hear those stories, and I've heard them from a lot. There's a lot that have been put out there. There's a lot of other things that are being put out there. Every time you can exploit money out of somebody, that's what they're doing. And listen, I'm one for those guys making all their money, but I mean, you're constantly troubleshooting all the time. You're not coaching as much as in certain aspects because, as a head coach, you got to go make those final calls of things that happen, when they happen, how they happen. That's the dynamic that's different. And then when you add the transfer portal, you understand something. Think if every pro player was an open free agent.
Yeah.
Would anybody be in camp? They didn't have their contract exactly right. They could walk. I mean, that's the issue. But here's the problem. Our government has to fix, because every avenue you go down, Peter, it doesn't work in court. It gets thrown out. Everyone's a rabbit hole. And then every time you try to challenge something to get something right, those people have the rights in court because of this law, that law. There has to be some things set in concrete, because when you combine these two things of NIL with transfer portal, and then they can win in the court battles of what goes on. I'm not trying to limit what guys make. I think it's wonderful, but there's got to be some parameters so you know how to operate on a daily basis of what to do and how to do it. And there's certain sections of the year we're in ball right now. This ain't the time to negotiate, but right now that's all the time. And that's why I think it's frustrating coaching. And plus, certain schools don't have the ability to have the resources and the number of people to manage that situation like other schools do.
That's Jimbo Fisher. Not a sustainable system, but also realize, coming from a guy who's getting $77 million not to coach. So he's part of the big picture there. But I agree. I think that the system is not sustainable. He's asking Congress to get involved. No, I mean, this is going to become professional sports. And it is professional sports, but it's got to be run like professional sports. And you're going to have players that will sign contracts, and if they want to get out of them, if they want to transfer, there will be buyouts, just like coaches. And that's the way it has to be run. They will be paid employees of the university. This student-athlete nonsense is gone. It's not going away. It's gone. And then you have this. We can throw this into the stew as well. There's a quarterback in North Carolina. He's like the top recruit of the class of 2026. So he's got 2 more years of high school. He's just starting his junior year of high school in North Carolina. He is a 5-star quarterback, and he is suing the North Carolina State Board of Education over the ban of endorsement deals for student athletes of public high schools. Okay, so we had Quinn Ewers a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. This happened to him. He was in Texas, and he wanted to sign a deal to make some money. Texas doesn't allow it, so he took an English class, graduated high school early, and then went to Ohio State, where he's able to collect NIL money. This is a guy who's still got 2 years of high school left to go. He is committed to Tennessee. Now, he could, I guess, conceivably live in Tennessee and play high school football there because Tennessee allows that. But in North Carolina, you can't get, it's not NIL money, but it's endorsement deals. And in the complaint, which was filed August 23rd, it's written that back in April, Brandon was approached by a prominent national trading card company and presented with an opportunity to provide a certain volume of signed memorabilia prior to his high school graduation. So this is part of the memorabilia market as well, that people want to get in on signed memorabilia from a guy who may wind up being an all-pro quarterback from his high school days, because that amounts to more money as well. It says, in exchange, NIL sponsor one would pay Brandon a substantial sum of money with payments structured over time. The agreement would provide his family with financial security for years to come. So we're probably talking millions of dollars here. And he says, I feel like this is important because we were able to benefit off what we worked for. Kid's 16 years old. He said, this will help many other kids and just not myself. Oh, yeah, he's doing it for the good of others there. So I would think that if he gets, if this is rejected, that more than likely he's going to wind up living with somebody, a booster family or somebody in Tennessee, and playing his high school football there, staying close to the university. Maybe he can pick up their system, get the playbook, whatever. There are 38 states in the District of Columbia which allow high school athletes to engage in NIL activities and provide them that engagement in NIL activities that does not invalidate their amateur status. So, like if you're in D.C., you're playing for a school that I don't know about Maryland, but I think Virginia has it as well. But anyway, if you're a high school star in D.C., you can make money. You can make this kind of cash, and if you're this good, somebody's going to pay you millions of dollars to sign cards, to take trading cards. A high school junior with trading cards, man, that is rich. And, well, good luck to Faison Brandon. But, man, that is just another example of where we are now. And look how quickly it's ramped up. 3-4 years ago, we didn't have any of this. Nothing. And now, you have Jimbo Fisher saying, hey, I'll play in the bowl game, but I want an extra $10,000 to do it. This is not a sustainable system. It's crazy. You know what else is crazy? Deion Sanders and the University of Colorado, not just Deion, but the school itself, banning a columnist from the Denver Post from asking questions. Really? So you've probably heard about some of the stuff that's going on at the University of Colorado. It's funny, exactly 12 months ago, we were in love with Deion Sanders. Wow, look at that. Look at what he's done to Colorado, and they opened the season against the team that had played for the national championship just 7-8 months earlier at playing at TCU, and they won. And they won their first 3 games, and oh, my God, how long can they keep Deion at Colorado? Jerry Jones is going to snap him up. He's a great, great coach. And they won one more game the rest of the year, but since Sports Illustrated had such an early deadline for their cover for Sportsman of the Year, old Deion was on the cover of Sports Illustrated winning 4 games at Colorado. Well, when you don't win, the pressure starts to ratchet up. People start to do investigations. There are critiques of the team, and Deion doesn't like it. There's a columnist for the Denver Post named Sean Keeler who has written some things about the University of Colorado football program. Okay, that's his job. His job is to be critical. He's a columnist. Well, Deion, and with the backing of the University of Colorado, has decided that Keeler will be banned from asking questions. Really? Asking questions at a news conference. In a statement last week, Colorado claimed that Keeler, it's not Keeler. Is it Keller or Keeler? I think it's Keeler. Keeler had written a series of sustained personal attacks on our football program, and specifically Coach Prime. It's interesting, in a school release, they refer to him as Coach Prime. His name is Coach Sanders. So Paul Feinbaum, longtime journalist and now a talk show host for ESPN, kind of their voice of college football in many ways. He was on Get Up yesterday and said this about the situation.
I find this whole thing to be disgraceful. Deion may want to talk about love and joy, and that's been the cornerstone of what he seems to be spewing out. But treating reporters like this seems like we're in some autocratic country. This is not America, and the fact that it's in his contract is really even more absurd. But don't forget, he did this at Jackson State. This is a trait of Deion Sanders. He wants to have it his way, and I find him to be a bully and a hypocrite, and quite frankly, as someone who has been a fan of his throughout his entire career, even at Colorado, I am mortified by his actions.
And this is why I believe that Deion's going to be gone at the end of the year. I'm not so sure they can win 6 games to get to a bowl game. And, if he leaves there with 7, 8, maybe 9 wins over the course of 2 years, it's not a success. I mean, it's one thing that he won at Jackson State, and good for him for starting out there, and he raised a lot of money for the school, and he did some good things. But when you go to Colorado and you talk the talk, like, last year he said, oh, you better beat me now because this is as bad as I'm going to be. Well, projections are they're not going to be that great this year. And he may have the top quarterback in the country in his son, Shador, but who knows if they're going to win a good percentage of their games. And he's talking about all I have is love and blah blah blah. No, I mean this is really bad, and I think it's an even worse look for the school. The school is backing him because he brings in so much money. He was selling out the football games last year. And I guess, they have season ticket sales for this year, or the promise that it's going to be great. But you just can't run things like this. If you're going to have press conferences, you have to allow reporters to ask actual questions at the news conference. You can't just stonewall, he wrote bad stuff about us, therefore he can't ask a question. No, doesn't work that way. So this is a really bad look for Colorado. It's a bad look for Deion, and I think it's the beginning of the end there. I could be wrong, but if I'm sitting here next year and Deion is not the coach, I will not be surprised. Coming up, a little bit more on cut down day. We'll see if anything crosses as to who's being released. Commanders have to get down to 53 by 4 o'clock this afternoon. And we got a running quarterback who's going to start for Washington, Jaden Daniels. There is a coach who had a running quarterback for 4 games last year. Looked really good. Anthony Richardson didn't have him the rest of the year because he got hurt. The coach says he'd still like him to run. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630. During the breaks, I'm checking through Twitter to see if there are any notable cuts announced around the league. Haven't seen anything earth-shattering yet. We're waiting for the Commanders, obviously. The deadline, 4 o'clock this afternoon. And, the way things work, some guys could be brought back to the practice squad. We also are going to have guys released who could catch on with other teams, of course, but other teams' players could catch on with the Commanders, and those who are going to be on the 53 at 4 o'clock this afternoon could be released to make room for the players coming in from other teams. So as Dan Quinn said, it's going to be fluid and really through the first week of the season. And the reason for that is if you are on a roster in week 1 in the NFL, you're guaranteed for the year. So a lot of teams want players who are going to be backups and practice squad guys, but they don't necessarily want to pay them for the whole year. So if you sign them in week 2 and you only keep them around for 3 or 4 weeks, that's what they get paid for. So there's a lot of that's going to go on around the league today, and we will be watching that. Speaking of watching, I saw this. I'm a subscriber to the Long Sunday Read. It's put together by Don Van Natta and others. What they do is they collect these various stories from publications throughout the week. Some of them are from magazines, some of them from newspapers, and they're long stories. And on a Sunday, you have time to read them. And I love this. And they find all these different types of features. And there was one from somebody who wrote in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram about. His name is Mac Engel. He wrote about the cost of watching sports this season. If you want to watch every football game, college and pros, here's the total. If you want Amazon, that's $14.99 a month, or I think you can pay $150 for the year. Netflix is $15.49 a month. Peacock is $7.99 a month. ESPN Plus, and this is if you're streaming everything, don't have cable, that's $10.99. If you want the Sunday ticket, that's $3.79 for the season, and then you're going to need YouTube to watch that, so that's going to be $72.99 for, I think it's a month for that. I believe YouTube is that much money because you get all these different channels. Hulu, if you want to stream it through that, is $76.99. Anyway, when you add everything up, you're looking at, for watching sports, this is just sports. You don't have HBO, you don't have, you do have Netflix, so you can watch movies, but you're looking at $3,132.28. This is the way it's going, and the NFL is putting more and more games on other channels. You think you're okay if you got Amazon for Thursday Night Football. Okay, that's good. But guess what? For the Friday night game, there's going to be a Friday night. They used to stay away from that because of high school football. We'll take that too. So they're putting a game in Brazil. It's the Packers and the Eagles, and they're going to play on Friday night, and you got to have Peacock to watch that. That's a week from this Friday. And that's the cost of watching sports now. It's just nuts. It's crazy, and it's probably only going to go up. And I think what they're doing is they're saying, hey, you want it, you're going to have to pay for it. And hey, if you can't afford to pay for it, well, that's okay because you're not really in the demographic of the sponsorship that we want anyway. I guess the greed game, as Gordon Gekko said, greed is good. And it's good for the NFL. It's so good that, in fact, the owners today are discussing allowing 10% equity in the team by private investment firms. That's the way it's going. You know, the cost of owning a team is so high now that you almost can't find anybody to afford it. You know, even Josh Harris had to put together a group to buy the Commanders. That's the way things stand today. As for the on-the-field stuff, this is going to be very, very interesting to watch this year, and you're going to hold your breath a lot of times as you watch Jayden Daniels play. You can look this up on YouTube. They compiled the hits that he took at LSU, and, man, it'll curl your hair. He did suffer an injury on a play that was not a running play. It was in the pocket against Alabama. But he did manage to maintain his health and won the Heisman Trophy last year, so you keep your fingers crossed on that. But a cautionary tale may be Anthony Richardson, who was terrific for the Colts last year in the 4 games that he was healthy. He played the first 4 games of the year, completed 60% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and ran 25 times for 136 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he got hurt on a running play, hurt his shoulder, missed the rest of the year, missed the last 13 games of the year. The Commanders have been very clear about this. They want Jayden Daniels to protect himself. There was a play in the Miami game. He only played 3 series in the entire preseason. And by the way, that's going to be something to watch this year. When he struggles, you're going to hear people say, oh, well, he didn't get enough experience playing in the preseason. No wonder. So they pick their poison there, inexperience versus the risk of getting him hurt. So they didn't want to do that. So he emerges from the preseason healthy. He's going to start the opener at Tampa a week from Sunday. But in terms of running the ball, they've been very clear. Protect yourself. Get down, slide. And they say that he does know how to slide. He was not a baseball player. Russell Wilson was, and that certainly helped him early on in his career. But Daniels, they say, knows how to slide. They like him to slide head first sometimes, but stay out of harm's way. Shane Steichen, the coach of the Colts, even though he had this great rookie quarterback for only 4 games last year, got hurt his shoulder, missed the rest of the year. This is what he told Rich Eisen about what he's looking for heading into year 2 with a healthy Richardson.
I think I don't want to take that out of his game. I know that. That's what he does really well. I mean, are we going to abuse it? No, we're not going to abuse it, but there's going to be a time and a place, and that keeps defense on their heels. I know he likes to run the football. I think, he was rolling there those first 4 weeks. I think he had 4 rushing touchdowns, had some big runs that changed the game for us. So we don't want to lose that element of our offense, and we go from there.
But that said, he was doing it without Jonathan Taylor. I imagine that would change the concepts inside the 10, right, or 15 with him.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a time and a place. We'll game plan all those things in the red zone, in the field to play. But obviously, you want to get the ball to 2-8 too, and just hand the ball off to him at times, obviously, because he's a big-time runner. Like I said, our O-line leads the way up front, and couldn't be more fired up about that group, the quarterback, running back, and our O-line.
Well, in terms of you saying you weren't going to take the run game away from Anthony Richardson, I think you said something. You don't take the 3 ball away from Steph Curry, right? Is that what you said over there?
That's right.
Did you get any pushback that you should have said Tyrese Halliburton instead?
I love Tyrese, and you know what I mean? I'm just saying, shoot, Steph Curry's the best to shoot those 3-pointers, and Anthony Richardson, I think, could be one of the best runners to ever do it. So I don't want to take that element out of his game.
Okay, but you better hope he stays healthy. And it's 17 games, and it's going to 18 games. And if you're going to have a running quarterback, you better have a quarterback who knows how to protect himself, knows how to get down. So we'll watch Richardson this year, and here we'll watch Jayden Daniels and hope that he makes it through the season. That's going to be really a crucial element of his development this year. As for starting a rookie quarterback, it goes back a ways, but it was unusual when it happened. We're talking 20 years ago when Ben Roethlisberger became the starting quarterback as a rookie for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But that was not the plan. Tommy Maddox, who is one of those bounce back guys, he'd been a high draft pick, I think, by the Denver Broncos. Dan Reeves really liked him, took him to New York. He winds up playing in the XFL, the first iteration, when it was combined like with wrestling. This would have been like 2000, I think the year 2000, 2001, whatever it was. And so by 2004, he's back in the NFL, and he's the starting quarterback for the Steelers. Had a pretty good year the year before. And the plan was that Tommy Maddox was going to start the whole season. They would bring Roethlisberger along slowly. He wasn't the top pick of the draft. He was big, but, they thought, well, we'll develop him. Well, Tommy Maddox goes down in the opener, and Ben Roethlisberger starts the rest of the season, starts 15 games, and I think he won 14 of them, something like that. And this was Cowher yesterday, Bill Cowher, the coach of that team, on the Dan Patrick Show, and his thoughts on starting a rookie quarterback. Now, realize, he's been out of the league a while. He won his Super Bowl 14, 15 years ago in Pittsburgh, and then left after that. He's been more than that. He's been at CBS for 18 years, so it's been a long time since he won that Super Bowl in Detroit over Seattle. And here are his thoughts on the idea of starting a rookie quarterback in the opener.
When you start the season as a starter, there's not just the element of the unknown, because the game is so much faster, so much more complex, so much more involved when the regular season starts as opposed to the preseason. So you got to make sure there's not a false sense of confidence you have going in, and then the expectation you have of not letting down your teammates. So I think ideally you put a situation, how it played out for Ben was great. He didn't have that expectation going in. He was thrusted into the job when Tommy Maddox got hurt. So he really didn't have time to think about it. So it almost alleviated that type of pressure. I'm the second guy. I'm going to come in here and just kind of do my thing. And obviously from that time on, he won his first 15 games because we kind of built things around him. We had a defense, we had a running game. And as he became more comfortable, we allowed him to do a lot more things from a passing standpoint.
And I think the big difference with Roethlisberger from Daniels was Roethlisberger played at Miami of Ohio, a mid-major program. Case of Jaden Daniels, not only did he play for two major programs in Arizona State and LSU where he won the Heisman Trophy, but he played 5 years because of COVID. Roethlisberger played 4, that's true. But I think that the jump up from the highest level of college football in the SEC to the NFL is a little bit different than Miami of Ohio to the NFL. It worked out very well from Roethlisberger. Won a couple of Super Bowls. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. All that. That's fine. But this is Cowher on his thoughts on playing rookie quarterback, and I think there's some merit to this. As for the coaching desires of Bill Cowher, and his name used to come up around here several times, as Dan Snyder would fire coach after coach. Well, what about Bill Cowher? Can they talk Bill Cowher into coming back? He never has done it, has not done it. And that led to this question yesterday from Dan Patrick.
When's the last time you had a real itch to coach?
You know what, Dan? I know what it entails. I love talking to coaches even today and talking about things that I see from the outside. I know on the inside, it's not everything you see on the outside. There's a lot of other things that take place. But, clock management, I see that at times, being able to play to your strengths and not to try to develop something that you're not. Understand who your identity is as a football team. And I kind of like what I see. I love the fact that we've gotten this passing league, but this past year we had 8 new head coaches. 5 of them were defensive coordinators. So now all of a sudden the defense is becoming a little bit of that. Why? Because all of a sudden you saw the Kansas City Chiefs reach the basement of where they were a year ago on Christmas Day. Frustration on the sidelines. What got them back into the playoff hunt was all of a sudden this guy named Isaiah Pacheco gave a degree of toughness on offense, a defense that became stifling. And they went into the playoffs as underdogs and kind of used that chip on their shoulder. No one believes in us. They don't respect us. So, it still goes a long way having balance on your team. Even as great as Patrick Mahomes is, it was the running game with Isaiah Pacheco. It was a defense that led also to that championship. Special player, no question. And then you see 5 of the 8 defensive coordinators, and the 6th one was Jim Harbaugh. We know what Jim Harbaugh is going to do. He's going to run the football. He brings in Greg Roman from Baltimore, a couple of backs from Baltimore, and take Justin Herbert and say, okay, I know you're a great quarterback, but we're going to give you a balanced running attack as well. So the NFL is cyclical. I really believe that. We go through periods and trends of wanting to throw the ball and be this really open team. But really to have sustained success, it goes back to the same thing. Yes, a great quarterback you're always looking for that. But you better have a balanced football team that can throw it, that can run it, that can play defense, and have a good kicking game.
You avoided the question there, Coach. When's the last time you had a true itch to come back or somebody reached out to you to coach?
Oh, it's been years. I mean, it's been a few years. I mean, I just don't have the itch to make that kind of demand, the time demand, because I know what it is. I mean, it's I love coaching on Sundays, but I also love the off season, Dan. I mean, I love when the season's over to be able to travel. I don't get involved with free agency. I watch the draft. I don't study the draft. I see the OTAs, but I see training camp, and I get that, okay, this is awesome. I get to talk to the coaches on Monday. But I've said this before. I'm going to my 18th year at CBS. I said, I coach every team every Sunday, and I haven't lost a game in 18 years. So I feel really good the rest of the week. So I have not got that itch in a few years.
Yeah, and it's not the coaching that they don't want to do. They like that, the actual game day coaching. I've heard this from a number of coaches. It's the preparing to coach. John Thompson used to say this, and when John Thompson left Georgetown, he was 57 years old, and he said, "I'm resigning. I'm not retiring." And he was interested in an NBA job. He talked to a couple of teams, whether they offered or not, I don't know. But as the years went by, he realized, okay, I don't really have the desire to put in the work it takes to prepare to coach. And that's what Cowher's telling you. It's not the Sundays. It's the Monday through Saturday, getting ready, the training camp, the off-season grind, the hours in the tape room and all that. That's what they don't want to do. So there's that. Before I get to the last thing that he said of interest to me, to Patrick yesterday, there is I guess you would call this some breaking news. The Commanders have an announcement. They have a stadium name. FedEx came off as they exercised an option to remove their name from the stadium since the team was sold. So it had become Commanders Field for a little while. Now it becomes Northwest Stadium. So get used to saying Northwest Stadium. The Commanders, in this press release that they just put out within the last half hour or so, they've announced that they have partnered with Northwest Federal Credit Union. It's a new multi-year exclusive naming rights agreement for the team stadium, bringing together two institutions with a storied history in the region and community. Multi-year. Those of you who think, they're just going to snap their fingers and they're going to build a new stadium, Josh Harris said on Sunday, 2030 is realistic. So you're looking at at least six more seasons at this stadium. Whether the agreement has an option for Northwest to put its name on the new stadium, we'll have to see. But you're going to get used to it. Northwest Stadium. So when the Commanders play their home opener, which will be September 15th against the Giants, they will be playing at Northwest Stadium, Northwest Federal Credit Union, putting their name on the stadium. I guess it's pretty good to be involved in a financial institution. Seems to have worked out pretty well for Baltimore with M&T Bank Stadium. Speaking of money, last thing from Cowher from his conversation yesterday with Dan Patrick. And Dan asked him, what's the coolest thing that you have in your office? And this is what Cowher said.
The very first signing bonus I actually got the check. My signing bonus was I was a rookie. I was a free agent with the Cleveland Browns because I got cut the year before. And so I signed for $1,000 signing bonus, and I still have the check when they took out the taxes for $682. So every time people come in and just talked about guaranteed money and what they had, so I used to walk over to my desk and just say, hey, listen, I got to show you this signing bonus of mine because this tells you that you're here because you love the game. Those things will take care of themselves. But this is what I played for because I was a backup player so I love the game. So I kept that check there at times just to put things in its proper perspective.
Yeah, $1,000 in a signing bonus. If you've been watching Hard Knocks in the first episode, they show a lot of this, the players doing skits and stuff in front of the team. It used to be that the player would stand up in the lunchroom and sing his alma mater. I don't know if they do that anymore. But I guess each player was supposed to say what his signing bonus was, and Caleb Williams said it was $25 million, and the backup, I forget his name, he played at Division II school, whatever his name is, he just pretty much fell out of his chair. He was an undrafted free agent out of a Division II school, and Caleb Williams' signing bonus was $25 million. Most of us, you give us $25 million, we're good. Hey, we don't have to play a down of football. You give us that, we're going away. But that's just the signing bonus with many more millions to come down the road if he becomes one of those guys. All right, Bram Weinstein now at 11 o'clock every day. That's coming up next. Tony at 2 o'clock. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.